Welcome back out on the mushroom trail. It's another absolutely beautiful fall day out here in the forest of the Pacific Northwest. And today I want to focus on one of my all-time favorite mushrooms, one that a lot of people don't realize is available down here in our lowland forests. It's a King Bolete, and a lot of times when we hear King Bolete or Porcini, we tend to think about either coastal forests or we think about being at elevation up in the Cascades. But a lot of people don't realize that there's an absolutely great King Bolete, the Fiber King, also known as the Fib King or the Chocolate Bolete, that's oftentimes hiding in these lowland Doug Fir, Hemlock forests that we have all around us here in the Pacific Northwest. Now the trick to finding this is just knowing where to look. Let's jump into this forest. Let's see what we see. So the Fiber King Bolete can be pretty elusive, but the secret is all about finding another mushroom that tends to be easier to spot. If we look through the slough there, you may be catching a little bit of a white flash from a mushroom. Let's zoom in and take a look here. Take a look at that. We've got a little bit of that fall sunshine hitting it. You can see a slight umbo. You can see a sign of decurrent gills. Let me give it a little tug. We'll bring it in a little closer to take a look. So the mushroom we're looking at here is oftentimes referred to as the sweetbread mushroom. It's in the Clitopilus prunulus group. And notice, it's got decurrent gills, it's got an enrolled margin that can be a little wavy with age. Also, at the base, it'll oftentimes get a little bit wider, and it'll have these fine little felty hairs. Now the cap is going to feel kind of dry and suede-like if it's not been rained on. Now today it's been rained on, so all of these mushrooms have a little bit of a slimy feel to them. We'll talk about that in a sec, so the texture can really kind of change depending on the conditions. But notice that it's got sort of this off-white, almost like a really subtle gray color. Now, there are a lot of mushrooms that look really similar to this, and that's the reason why we have to be really careful, because some of them are extremely toxic, some of the ones that are in the Clitosabe group. Now, one of the big differentiating factors with the sweetbread mushroom is that if we take this home and we take a spore print, it's going to have kind of pinkish spores or salmon colored. Now, the other thing is that we can also use our noses when we're investigating this mushroom. So if you take a whiff of this, it has a really distinct aroma. It's oftentimes described as being farinaceous, which is how it gets its other name, the miller. So that farinaceous smell kind of smells a little bit like wet flour. Sometimes it's compared to cucumber or watermelon rind. It actually possesses the same chemical that gives cucumber its odor. So take a closer look at this cap. Look at how you can see that it's a little bit slimy because of the rain. Now that can be a little bit misleading because, as I mentioned before, this one is widely regarded as having a dry, kind of velvety feel almost. You can see that the color is sort of a white, but almost like a dingy or gray white. It also has a little bit of a lumpy appearance. And again, this time of year, the rains are really falling, so it can be good to know that a lot of times you're going to detect this little bit of a kind of slimy feel to it. And they're certainly out in force this year. And I just wanted to quickly show a couple of younger ones. So these are just popping up, and you can see that that cap is still kind of conical and still hasn't spread out, but we see again that enlarged base. And here's yet another one just a little bit larger. Again, we still detect the umbo in the center, decurrent gills, looking nice. And just one more example, this one being pinned down by the branches. This is a saprobic mushroom growing in conifer and hardwood forests. And here's the deal, so a lot of times you may just find a single sweetbread mushroom or two, This year I'm seeing them well represented in huge troops, which is somewhat rare. But that's music to a lot of people's ears because this is regarded by some expert mycologists as being a choice edible mushroom. Now I want to stress, I'm not recommending to anyone who's just starting out in identifying mushrooms to go out and seek this one out to consume it. It's got too many dangerous lookalikes, it's definitely not a beginner mushroom. But again, the reason why I'm featuring it here is because aside from being known as the sweetbread mushroom or the miller, it's also commonly referred to as the spy. And that's because it shows up in the same exact spots as King Boletes. And that includes Boletus edgeless, but also a lot of people don't realize the Fiber King as well. And the deal is that these mushrooms will oftentimes show up a little bit before the King Boletes. And so a lot of seasoned mushroom foragers will really be on the lookout for that, and they'll mark their maps, which is exactly what I did here. So I've been checking back this little patch of trail religiously. There's a little Gomphidius subroseus, so we know Swillus is around as well. So I've actually been noticing those sweetbread mushrooms for days and days, and I keep checking back. And today I was just elated to see exactly what I was hoping to show up. And I think I might have passed it. Like I said, these guys can blend in pretty well. Did you see it when I walked by it initially? Take a look. Isn't that something? Beautiful, beautiful King Boletes. But not just any king. This is the Fiber King. Boletus fibrillosus, also known as the Fib King for short, or the Chocolate King. And you can kind of see why. It's got that chocolate brown cap. If we look underneath, we can see this one's got these light yellow sponge layers, also reticulation or webbing on the stipe there. Notice that the actual stipe itself is also kind of a light beige or brown color. Look at that cap. Isn't that something? So you can see how it gets kind of fibrous. Now this is an excellent, excellent wild mushroom to forage out in the forest. It's somewhat rare, especially considering that this is the only King Bolete that you're going to find associating with Douglas Firs. And considering how many Doug Firs are out here in our local forests, this is not a mushroom that I see all that often. So it's quite the treat. And this is sort of an interesting mushroom in appearance because it can take on a lot of different looks. Those of you who saw the last week's video that I put out, you'll remember or recall that I had a Fiber King Bolete there that was kind of had a classic Boletus edgeless stature or look to it, big bulbous base. A lot of times they'll get thinner and wispier. They'll do all kinds of different things in age. So, and there are other boletes out here too that can look somewhat similar. And because this one can be kind of variable, I could see someone confusing it maybe with admirable bolete, which you'll generally find growing from well-decayed hemlock wood. And I'm back out at this spot. Here's a couple little sweetbread mushrooms. And look what jumped out at me. A pair of Chocolate King Boletes popping out. They're a little too small for me to want to harvest these right now, but I'll be back. And look at this right back here. That was surely a Fiber King that a squirrel or some other forest creature beat me to. This is a favorite not just to humans, but also the bugs and the animals that live out here, so you gotta get them while they're out. So I'm just back out here again checking up on my Fiber Kings, and I'm noticing plenty of sweetbreads continuing to fruit out. You can see relatively fresh growth underneath this log. And as I referenced before, you don't always get them in the abundance that we're seeing this year, but they are really out, and I think that that's a really, really good sign for these Fiber Kings as well. So, I've been keeping an eye on this. It's been about 5 days since I first spotted that little pair of Fiber King Buttons. And I'm also keeping an eye on these sweetbread mushrooms because these are a score as well. So very interesting to see both doing well. The Fiber Kings are growing a little slow. Let's take a look at those. So here they are after 5 days. I've been keeping an eye on these guys, and I'll tell you what, I'm gonna have to go ahead and forage these today. So they're definitely quite a bit bigger than they were, but they're not massive by any measure. I'm just worried about losing these to the squirrels or bugs or other things. So I'm gonna go ahead, give these a tug, clean them off, and take them with me. And take a look at this. This is super cool to see. So I went ahead and gave this a tug, and take a look underneath. So here you can see that the sponge layer, those pores are stuffed when they're young, and they're, instead of being like a light yellow greenish color, they're a white creamy color. That's really indicative of this Fiber King when you catch them really young. So you won't necessarily see this in one that's been around for a while. Also, of course, we see that webbing that we call reticulation, that net-like pattern that's on the stipe. We've also got a little color on there, right? So we've got some brown flecks and grooves, and just give you another look here at the cap. What a beautiful mushroom, right? And this one is known, I referenced this in the last video, but oftentimes it'll have a somewhat rooting base. So sometimes if you inspect the base of the stipe, you'll see that it buries down a little ways underground. So what a beauty. So I was just trimming up the base of this mushroom, and I wish I had been filming it because, this really cuts so clean. It's almost like whittling away at a stick, or a lot of times I'll compare it to peeling a potato. It's such a firm texture. And you can see those little yellow spots up there. So I started to trim away at those. Those are oftentimes with boletes, with King Boletes. That's a sign of a little bit of bug damage. So a lot of times bugs will try to lay their larvae in there. But check this out. As I was cleaning that, I looked off to my side, and lo and behold, look what was staring back at me. None other than the Pacific golden chanterelle, Chanterelles formosus. Not necessarily what I was out after today, but I won't say no. Go ahead, give it a tug, and I'll add it to the collection here today. Can't turn these down. It's been a great year so far for these. And so just a quick look under the cap of this one. So we've got decurrent veins or ridges, and I thought this one really exemplified the string cheese like fibrous tearing of this one. So this has a rubber-like flesh that's somewhat firm and robust. It holds up pretty well in the backpack or basket or bag. But that really kind of fibrous string cheese-like breaking pattern is really unique for this one. This was exemplifying that pretty well, so I just figured I'd take a quick sec and point that out. Always a pleasure. And on the way out, I just wanted to pause real quickly to acknowledge this one. So I know most of you, I'm sure, recognize this one. The iconic mushroom. This is like the quintessential mushroom you draw as a kid. It's been depicted in all kinds of things. We know this as the fly agaric, Amanita muscaria. And we've got that really pronounced skirt or annulus. We've got remnants of the partial veil up top. I'm not going to go into all the details on this one because I know that most of you are familiar with it. But the reason I wanted to pause is just to point out that this is oftentimes an indicator of King Boletes as well, Boletus edulis. Now, I haven't seen this one in association with the Fiber King, but if you have, let me know in the comments below. So I'm just back here on the home front, and I wanted to give you all another just good close look at the Fiber King. So again, we can see how those caps are fused together. Notice the stipe, we've got reticulation, we've got stuffed pores on the young one. Now, when I was in the field, I referenced that idea of just kind of how firm and kind of dense the flesh is here, and how it was sort of like whittling a stick. So I just wanted to give you a look at that. so you can get a sense. And again, a lot of times this is compared to peeling a potato. So this is a unique kind of texture amongst these King Boletes when you get them fresh. They really are, a robust, kind of firm, thick, dense mushroom that really kind of behaves a lot differently than your typical button mushroom. So, you can do different things sauteing these. You can also, a really classic use of porcini in general is to dry and powder it. And a lot of times the flavor improves. So generally with all King Boletes or porcinis, I tend to work to process these as soon as possible. And the reason is because, we referenced that the bugs just love these. And as I cut this, you can see, so this has a little bit of a bug hole in the cap. This is the main reason why I was reluctant to leave this out any longer than I already had. It felt like I was flirting with danger. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to strip this out into, roughly, 1/4 inch strips. I definitely don't like going thicker than 1/4 inch. And sometimes it depends on what drying technique I'm using. So some people will prefer to basket dry these. Others will put them into a dehydrator. I'm going to throw these into a dehydrator, so I'm not that concerned about how thick it is. But notice this too. I'm going to take this cap off. A lot of times the consistency of the cap is a lot different than that of the stipe. So sometimes if people are cooking these, they'll actually process the caps separately from those stipes or stems. So you can see that that cuts clean, cuts easy, whereas the stipe is going to be a lot thicker and it's going to be a different consistency. So those are going to have different drying times. They're also going to have different cooking times and different textures. So a little bit of bug damage there. I think I actually detected the culprit running across the cutting board here. That could have been a single bug or two. They got in there and did that, but that's not going to bother me at all. I'm just going to chuck these into the dehydrator, dry them out. Now that bigger one that I processed the other day, that was actually perfectly clean. I've already actually dehydrated that and thrown it into a jar. And I'll add this to that and just kind of store it away for future use. But let's go ahead and we'll cut the stipe as well. Again, 1/4 inch tends to be as thick as I want to go, but if I were basket drying these, I would go as thin as possible. And because this is so thick, I'm just giving you a different look here at the base. Notice this is so firm that if I wanted to do paper thin strips with the Fiber King, I certainly could. And that same thing holds true for the Spring King or the classic King Boletes edulis. All of those have that similar kind of robust nature. And, some people may go nuts with the thought that, hey, you're just going to dry that out and not utilize it fresh. This one, I've got plenty. So a lot of this I'm just going to dry out for future use. And as referenced earlier, so this is, in my opinion, it's a choice edible mushroom. It's going to have this sweet, nutty flavor that's just delicious. And a lot of times that actually improves once it's dehydrated and dried out. So it'll almost like age like a fine wine or something. So I'm going to throw these on the tray of a dehydrator. I have a dehydrator that a couple years back I just picked up online for a few bucks. It's handy to have one of these around. Again, if you need to dry these out, just basket drying, you would slice these a little bit thinner and you would go for really as thin as possible just to make sure that they're fully dehydrated. But again, you want these to be cracker dry, meaning that you want them to be dry enough that you can actually take and just crack these and they'll snap or break just like a cracker. Look at the reticulation showing up even on this little strip. Love seeing that. These are going to be a great addition to just kind of the overall mushroom stores that I like to have on hand for those winter months. These make a great addition, whether you're making a sauce or a stew, or really even, one of the things that I might do with that this winter, I might make a bolete butter. That's something, there's a lot of different recipes. There's one that's in the back of Daniel Winkler's book, Fruits of the Forest, that I might try out, although I think that calls for Dijon mustard, which I might look for a recipe that leaves out the Dijon. I don't always like mustard being in my butters, but who knows, maybe I'll get crazy this year, we'll see. So, but anyways, tons of things that you can do with this. Long history of use in Italian cuisine as well, as I'm sure you know. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mushroom Trail, and hopefully the King Boletes have found their way into your basket, or into your mason jar, or your mushroom stores for all those winter recipes. Let me know what your favorite use of this is in the comments below, and until next time, happy trails.